Welcome to the Legacy Project podcast, where we explore the power of personal storytelling and how your journey, yes, your journey, can become a lasting legacy. I'm your host, Don Fessenden, and today's episode is one that speaks to the heart of why we do this work: how your story can inspire positive change. Too often, we downplay our experiences. We think, who would want to hear my story? Or what difference can it really make? But here's the truth: stories have incredible power. They connect, they teach, they heal, and they lead. When you share your truth with courage and clarity, you become a voice someone else has been waiting to hear. You show them that they're not alone. You offer them hope, guidance, or even just a reason to take their next step. So today, we'll talk about how your story, your real, lived, imperfect story, can create ripples far beyond what you imagine. Let's dive in. One of the greatest powers of storytelling is connection. When we share openly, especially the tough stuff, we give others permission to feel seen, to relate, to breathe. You may think your story of growing up in a small town, changing careers later in life, or surviving a tough season isn't unique. But for someone else, it's exactly what they need to hear. Stories build bridges. They foster empathy in a world that desperately needs it. And empathy leads to understanding. Understanding leads to compassion. And compassion, that's the root of change. I've seen it time and again. Someone reads a story and decides to make a different choice, to forgive, to reach out, to finally believe that healing is possible. Here's something I want you to really hear today. You've already overcome more than you give yourself credit for. You've faced challenges, made hard decisions, endured loss, and tried again. And each time, whether you realized it or not, you were building resilience. When you share those stories, what you faced, how you felt, what you learned, you don't just celebrate your survival. You light the way for someone else who's still walking through it. Your story might show someone how to stay strong during a health crisis, or how to rebuild after failure, or how to find purpose in the middle of chaos. And here's the magic. When you give someone that kind of encouragement, you feel stronger too. Because in lifting others, you realize just how far you've come. Don't wait for the perfect moment to share your story. Don't feel like it has to be some epic, dramatic tale to matter. Sometimes, the smallest moments leave the biggest impact. The first time you stood up for yourself. The note your child left you on a hard day. The conversation that changed your perspective. These ordinary stories are often the ones that resonate most. Why? Because they feel real. They're not about being a hero. They're about being human. And it's in that authenticity that others find their courage, their voice, and their reason to try again. Storytelling is more than remembering. It's also about calling others to something higher. Maybe your story calls someone to speak up, or to forgive, or to start their own journey of writing. Maybe it inspires someone to change a mindset, mend a relationship, or volunteer in their community. Every story carries a seed of action. So as you reflect on your own experiences, ask yourself, what values show up in my story? What lesson could someone else learn from what I've lived? What action might this inspire, big or small? And remember, you don't have to preach your message. Just live it and write it with integrity. Let people draw their own meaning. They will, more than you think. When you write and share your story, you're not just preserving your past. You're planting seeds for someone else's future. Think about it. Years from now, a grandchild, a niece, a stranger may read your words, and in them, they might find a piece of themselves. They might see a path they didn't know was possible. Your story could be the spark that sets a change in motion, and you may never fully know the impact you've had. But that's the beauty of legacy. It echoes, it ripples, it outlives you. As we close today's episode, I want to remind you of something simple and powerful. Your story matters. not just to you, but to someone else. You have wisdom. You have scars that turned into strength. You have insight forged in the fire. And when you share your story with honesty and heart, you give others the courage to own theirs. So don't wait. Write it down, speak it aloud, pass it on. And if you need support as you start, check out my book, The Legacy Project, a guide to sharing your story. I wrote it for moments like this, to help you turn your life into a message that lasts. Thank you for joining me today on the Legacy Project podcast. Keep writing, keep sharing, and keep leaving your mark, because your story can change lives. I'll see you next time.